Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Professor.scribbles, or Ollie if you're subscribed. That's right, subscribers get to the first name basis. So if you're not, sorry, we're just not chill like that. I also would like to say that I am sick right now, which I don't normally sound like this. I have just been under torment, biologically for is that how that works? For a whole week. So that's why I sound like this, and if I cough sometimes, I'll try to edit it out, but we're just dealing with this today. So today, I wanted to try something a bit different to what I normally post, and that is designing some OCs. I have a history of creating characters or writing some chapters of their story, then looking them up in my mind archives for a while, so I'm hoping that if I make it into a series or a video or something, I'll be more motivated. So let's get started. As you can see, I'm working off bases created by the lovely Albanenici. I think it's how it's pronounced. So I'm really sorry if I didn't get that right, but Albanenici or Albanenici, who knows? I'll link their account in the description. I find drawing from bases easier because I'm not entirely sound in my anatomy, and I find it as a good way to learn. I was inspired by a few different things when creating the story. Maggie Stiefvater, Jesus Christ, made the Raven Cycle, which was a huge contributor for the vibes. Her books just encapsulated what it was like being younger in the early 2000s and a lot of my childhood, and that's where I got the time period setting for this story. I was also inspired by an artist called Dochi Bader, again so sorry if I pronounced the name wrong, for their really unique drawing style. It really reminds me of the types of art I would see when I was younger, which also played a part in where I wanted to take the story. Starting off with the first character, Clover Hartwell. I will admit, at first I took a lot of unintentional inspiration from Maggie Stiefvater. No, I'm looking this up. Hold on. I'm back, I found it. It's Stiefvater. Okay, so, yeah, I took a lot of inspiration from Maggie Stiefvater's character Blue from her series The Raven Cycle. I'm obsessed with it right now, which is why it's everywhere, but yeah. Though I did see how similar they were and made some changes, but looking back on the story now, they're still pretty similar, so I will have to tweak some things. It seems to happen every time I'm reading and creating something at the same time. I always end up taking unintentional inspiration from whatever I'm reading. Anyway, Clover is an only child living with her mother. She prides herself on her unique sense of fashion. She lives in a small town, so she's definitely the type of person to call other kids normies and be very pretentious about it. Her mother and father, they're still on good terms after they split, so once every year he comes and stays for a week. In between then he sends her letters and stuff, but she's still very salty and is in that teenage age group where she's just mad at the world, so she's just not a fan of him. It's the first day of the Christmas holidays, which I'm loosely basing this setting on Australian time, which is just because it's my experience and I know a lot more about it than American times. Her dad is set to arrive for his week stay with them that day. Clover's really not excited, but still waits most of the day with her mother for him to show up. They wait until dark, and Clover's dad just doesn't make an appearance. She thinks that he went to get milk, but her mother is convinced something's happened to him. She ends up going down to the police station with Clover to report him missing, but when the lady behind the counter takes his name, she says there's no record of him in the birth registry, despite him being born in the town. What? Clover's father never existed. That's crazy. What? That's what I've got set in stone story-wise for her now, but yeah, the rest of the story follows Clover and the other characters, which you will see in a minute, investigating her father's disappearance and finding out that things are not what they seem. Her design, she has a very twee sort of style. She likes lots of layers and patterns, buttons and clips. If I had to associate a song or a band with her, it would definitely 100% be Sixpence None the Richer. She likes to think of herself as a detective or sleuth, but when it comes to actually investigating, she relies heavily on others in the group a lot more. One thing she is good at, though, is weeding out information from people. She's a master manipulator, so she's kind of cool like that. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, moving on. Clover is confident in herself to a fault at times, and that can definitely get her into trouble. Clover works at the local library. One of her mum's friends called her the job, and she really does not like it because she thinks only old cat ladies work there. If you can't tell, she has a very sour outlook on her life. She doesn't think it's cool enough compared to everything she's seen on her Tumblr dashboard. Not me either, I would love to work in a library. Clover's mother is friends with the sisters. Okay, you gotta listen. Her mother is friends with the sisters who work at the crystal shop together. They were probably all dorks and called their group the Coven or something. I can see that for them. So Clover is often dragged along to the store every now and then with her mother, and she hates it. She doesn't believe in any of like the spiritual, crystal, astrological stuff. She thinks it's fully a scam. Anyway, that's her design finished. Don't you love her? Doesn't she look awesome? She thinks she looks awesome. Don't be fooled. She will call you a normie and criticize your fashion sense, and you will cry about it later. Moving on to the second character, her name is Willow Campbell. I like the theme of nature with the name so far, patting myself on the back for that one, though it doesn't continue for long, as you'll see later. Willow has 2 mums and 1 dad. Her parents also split, and she lives mainly with her mother and her stepmom. She has an older brother who moved out a while ago, so while she isn't an only child, she still gets treated like one. I'm not too sure where to place the ages of these characters, honestly. Personally, I get tired of characters being in high school. I think it's an overdone trope when, first of all, no one has that many adventures in high school, and you have way more freedom once you graduate. So I was thinking of making them recent graduates, but that's too close to home for me right now, and I kind of need them to be in high school, as hypocritical as that sounds, because a big part of the plot is the adults around them not being able to help them. I'm reminded of that one Lorde quote where she's like, teenagers have magic that they lose when they get older, or something like that. It stabbed me in the heart when I read it, so of course I'm adding it to the story. For now, I'm settling on them being in between grade 11 and 12, like going into grade 12, or being between junior year and senior year, I think, for you Americans out there. Moving back to the actual design of Willow and not getting distracted, I originally was going to have a preppy proper style for her and have her be in a private school, but the design wasn't really speaking to me, and I decided that one of her mothers was going to work in the local crystal/occult shop. I'm very partial to the whimsical aesthetic because growing up, my grandma was really spiritual and her house was like walking into a cave full of incense and crystals and blankets. It was awesome. So I wanted to incorporate some of that into design since this story is heavily based off, I wouldn't call it nostalgia because I don't think I'm old enough for that yet, but like reminiscing about when you were like barely old to have cognitive function. Willow was more tuned into the veil or the other world than other people around her are, though it's not like a hereditary thing, as her biological mum and dad have never been like that. But when she starts seeing visions and spirits, she goes to a local doctor to like figure out what's going on, but they can't find anything wrong, so the only way she can explain it is that she gets visions of the other side. With an explanation to things she's experienced, she dives head first into research about astrology and tarot and all these other things. I think that Willow is definitely a nerd and Clover's a geek. Like, that's their kind of dynamic. Willow is definitely very sweet to others to the point where she can let them walk all over her, because I feel like she just doesn't want to be a bother to anyone at all, which is kind of sad, but you know, we've all been there. It's fine. She lives above the crystal shop and gets a lot of her clothes and accessories from there. Everything is either handmade or hand-dyed or organic in some other way. So when Clover sees her fashion and her style, she gets very jealous and then very mad at her. Then Willow runs into her local library and keeps asking questions about where they keep their astrology books and when they'll be back in stock, and it just drives Clover insane. Needless to say, Clover really isn't a fan of her, but Willow wants to be friends, which I think is always a very fun dynamic to work with. Willow definitely listens to Fleetwood Mac. Like, can you see her? This girl idolizes Stevie Nicks. Anyway, this is her final design. She's such a cutie. I love her so much. I sure hope nothing bad happens to her. That would be awful. What? Oh my goodness. Coming to our final character of the trio, it's the token boy character. His name is Matthew. Everyone say hi, Matthew. His full legal name is Matthew Evans. And this boy, he's got some secrets. He's not what he seems. He's so mysterious and he's got so much going on. But I haven't entirely worked all of that out, so I'm not going to touch on it too much. Focusing not on his history, but his current existence, Matthew's mum runs the crystal shop with Willow's stepmom. If you haven't worked it out already, both of their mums are sisters, which makes Matthew and Willow cousins. They both definitely think that the other is the weird cousin. Matthew, like Clover, doesn't really care for crystals and stuff, but Willow is his only friend, so he can put up with it for her. Matthew spends most of his time trying to capture the attention of other guys at school. They don't ignore him on purpose, it's just that no one seems to notice him and he fades into the background easily. He's convinced it's because they don't think he's cool enough though, and goes out of his way to seem like he's nonchalant and doesn't care. He spends most of his free time outside the video store that Willow and him work at, leaning against the wall trying to look cool, but really he just looks odd and people avoid him because they think he's onto something. Matthew, my sweet understood child, I'm so sorry I did this to you. Different from the two other characters here, Matthew is not a child of divorce, though he is adopted because his parents couldn't have their own children. His parents won't tell them who his original parents are though, no matter how hard he tries to get them to tell him, and no matter all the research he does with Willow, he just can't figure it out. I took a lot of inspiration from just basic early 2000s male fashion with him. Matthew doesn't care about fashion as much as Willow and Clover because he doesn't want to stand outside the norm or fit inside a certain vibe. He just wants to fit in and make some friends. Since he spends most of his time at school alone because Willow goes to the private school down the road and Clover avoids him on principle, he takes his iPod everywhere. I'll let you guys theorize about what he listens to on it. Anyway, here he is. He just looks like your basic 14-year-old boy. He's not 14, but he looks like a 14-year-old boy. I think these characters are definitely like, I'd pitch them in the 17 to 18 ballpark. He's not 14. But yeah, they're like 17, 18. Moving on from the character design, I decided that drawing some interactions would be a good way to see how the characters interacted with one another. Yep, that's the sentence that I wrote there on the screen. This drawing is of Willow and Clover, and I think it reflects their dynamic pretty well. I used another method with this piece that also helps me with anatomy. I find that drawing over real people makes it a lot easier to get a sense of perspective and proportion. I kept their outfits pretty similar in this piece, nearly identical actually, but I gave Clover a button headband that I saw on TikTok that was really cute because I thought that was something she'd definitely wear. I feel like as soon as Clover and Willow become friends, then they'll be insufferable. Like, they're both nerds, so they'd be talking about the most odd stuff, and Matthew would just have to sit there and try to understand what they're talking about. Willow is actually the one who helps Clover with her missing dad the most in the beginning. She uses her abilities and actually sees a vision of him in the Veil. I'm establishing it now that the Veil does not equal afterlife. It's more of a place that spirits and things that I could best describe as yokai would live. Just things that wouldn't make sense in our world, like fae and imaginary friends and folklore, all of those sort of things. That's where Clover's father ended up. So Willow sees this and tells the others, then they end up just trying to find a way to the other side of the Veil because humans aren't meant to be there and they have to save Clover's dad. I'm so happy with how the drawing came out. I really like the rendering on Clover and Willow and how the background adds to the vibes but doesn't take away from the characters. Last but not least is a drawing with all three of them interacting. I just want to get a drawing of them like all in the same space together to understand what the vibe was. Whenever Willow is with Clover, they either end up arguing or talking, so Matthew doesn't have much to add to the conversation either way. He's more of a scary guard dog at this point, minus being scary, so he's just kind of like a guard dog, sort of. But when Willow or Clover give each other the silent treatment, he talks to either one of them. He doesn't get fully left out, but, you know, I feel so bad for my boy because people really do forget he's there sometimes, and that's entirely my fault. Clover refuses to believe in crystals and stuff, but is an absolute fiend for conspiracy theories because they're rooted in more logic. And there have definitely been some intense arguments around that. Originally, when Clover went to the crystal shop to get help with her father's disappearance, because the police weren't helping and she knew that Willow's mother was an ex-cop, they weren't there. But Matthew and Willow were running the business while their parents were out getting groceries or something, I don't know. So she thought she'd try to talk to Matthew since she actually despised Willow. Matthew agreed to help, but only if Willow could come along, and that's kind of how they all met. Now they're just trying to figure out what's going on. I don't know if I'll make a second video on this, it really depends how well this one does, but once they get to the Veil, oh man, there is a lot of world building and character design to do, I'll tell you guys that much. But for now, it remains locked away in my vault of secrets. Here they are. Aren't my children the cutest? I want to put them all into a blender. That was a joke, I'm joking. Don't put your children into a blender, they won't like it. Here are all my pieces for today, and that's all. Thank you so much for watching. I've never made a video in this style before, So I hope everyone liked it. I might post more about these guys later. Maybe just some character design fun, who knows.